Hello everybody, Dave here, and we are a couple of hours into the fixing process, the removal of the resin. Now, I've pretty much removed as much resin as I can. I've got a little bit more to do, so I'm going to do that while I talk. So I'm just going to move the camera a little bit. Basically, what I'm going to be doing here is mainly going around the edges to pick off any resin that is on the top layer. Okay, so yes, I have taken out about as much resin as I'm able to get to. Now, this part that I'm doing now, sort of trying to get resin off the top, is about the final piece I'm going to be able to do. And what I'm sort of basically thinking at the moment is that for me to get any more of the blue resin out of these letters, I would have to basically Dremel them out. So rather than doing that, what I've done is I've taken out as much of the resin as I can. I'm now trying to clean up the top, and I've also spent a lot of time on the side bits, like where I'm at the moment, trying to get as much resin off there as possible. Now, because this has been taking such a long time for me to actually go through, what I've been able to notice is that the excess resin that is left there is pooling, it is levelling, even where I've left sort of bits sticking up, it is levelling out a little bit. So basically I've come to the conclusion of I've got as much resin out as I just about can, so I'm going to leave that to create a secondary sealing layer, or sealant layer, and hope that I don't get too much coloration on the sort of side pieces. Now, the resin that I'm trying to take off from the top at the moment, to be honest, this is simply about not having as much to try and sand down afterwards. I mean, because of this, well, the whole thing would have been sanded down anyway once it was completed, but because of what I've had to do here, it's definitely 100% getting sanded. It'll need to. So yeah, as I said, I'm just trying to take off any excess off the top that I can, just to save me a little bit of that sanding time. And I'm hoping that there's enough fluidity in the resin that is still on here that it will seal the sides nicely. Okay, so there is quite a bit that I'm picking off the top here. Like I said, that's why I'm doing it really, because although it doesn't look like there's much there, there is quite a bit. But this is again, it kind of shows why I'm going through this painful process. Is that the resin, unfortunately, is too see-through. Now I am kind of hoping that the sort of secondary sealant layer that I've created will help with making it less see-through. But to be honest, when it comes to applying the next lot of resin, which isn't going to be today, because I'm going to need to let this dry. Yeah, when I apply the next lot of resin, I am going to fucking pack that motherfucker with colour, because doing a clean-up job like this is absolutely fucking horrible. I mean, it's a horrible task. It's horrible, it's sticky, it's gloopy, it's messy, and all the way through I've been thinking, am I doing the right thing? Because I've now made it look worse than it did. But I've had to kind of stick with it and go, no, it will look better. I was not happy with it, and that was the important part. I was not happy with it. It's a bit like if you're a chef at a restaurant, if you're not happy with a dish that's about to go out, you do not send it out. Well, it'll do. It's not good enough, especially not in the restaurant world. Now on this I could have gone it'll do, but not with it being see-through and being able to see the wood through the bottom. You see that I'm getting quite a bit of excess off there. Though you might not be able to see, but I'm getting quite a bit of excess off it. And what I'm going to do as well, once I finish this clean up of the top, like I said, I'm going to need to leave this to dry, because I do still need it to go, I need it to cure, I need it to go hard. And I want it to do that before I apply the next layer. So basically, any fluid will level out. I don't need two different drying processes going on. I need this lot to be dry before I put the next lot on. Yeah, I mean, this is as a process though. I know when I had to do the previous clean-up job, I know I didn't enjoy that, but that was easier to do than this. Much easier to do. Okay. But yeah, I mean, with doing this bit as well, if I wasn't doing this, then I would probably have to sand it down before I applied the next lot of resin. I don't want to have to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. So it's like I was saying, to get the rest of the resin out that's in there, I mean, on the camera angle at the moment, it might look like there's quite a lot. I'll show you an angle which will show that there's pretty much there's hardly anything in there anymore. But yeah, I don't want to have to Dremel it out unless I have no other choice. So it's a little bit like with the sides. I'm doing what I can to clean up the sides and the edges, but if it means that what I actually have to do is sort of use the Dremel or a bit of sandpaper once it's dry to just clean up the surfaces, like those edges, then that's what I'll do. But there's no point trying to sand it while it's wet or gloopy, because it won't fucking do nothing. The sandpaper, that is. Let's second time I've had to do a clean up job on resin. It is no fun. But hopefully when this is finished and hopefully looks a hell of a lot better, I'll be able to look back and go, okay, we learned our lesson with the new resin. I mean, I think it's quite interesting that literally at the point where I'd learnt I'd been using too much colour in my resin, the next bit I do is with new resin where I needed a lot of colour. Now what will concern me is if after all of this and doing the next lot of resin and I ram it full of colour, that I still end up with the same issue. If that is the case, I don't know what I'll do. Because I would not want to have to clean it out again. I think what I might have to do is just make sure that when I apply the resin, I go with quite a thin layer, so that if it does, if it is see-through, then I can perhaps add a thicker, another layer on top of colour. That'd be one way of doing it. I mean, I can't remember if I mentioned this on the video clip from earlier. Well, for me it's earlier, for you it's a completely different video. Where I started this cleanup process, and I mentioned that because of this it means that the gift is going to be late. Well, that's where I kind of, okay, it's going to be late, so I don't mind taking that extra bit of time on it to get it right. So if I was to do it again, well, not do it again, but when I reapply, if it's not quite right, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go, oh well, it will do, because I'm not. The objective, see, from a production view, the objective would be learn from this and get it right on the next pour. I mean, it could just be that this, I was going to say that this resin doesn't really like the powder, but it does. I just don't think I'll put anywhere near enough in, or for the thickness that I'm using, there wasn't enough colour. So whereas with the coasters, the excess coasters that I've poured, they're kind of alright, but probably because they've got a few more millimetres of thickness. Got a lot of blue resin here. I mean, one thing I will say as well, in a way, it's a good job that this fuck up was done with the new resin. I mean, if I'd been using the resin that I was using anyway, this problem wouldn't have occurred. But with using the new resin and it taking longer to dry, that is the only thing that has allowed me here to get all this resin out. Because if it had been the other resin, it'd have been set. There'd have been fuck all I could have done. So when I checked on this morning and realised what the situation was, I kind of knew I had a bit of time to work out what I was going to do, so I was able to go out, get on with my day. and while doing that think about this and then work out that, yeah, okay, when I get home, and this is, I mean, literally, I've not had anything to eat yet. I literally got home, grabbed a beer out of the fridge and started on this. Now, my nose is blocked, because I've not been able to blow my nose when I'm doing this. I was going to say, yeah, I was hoping to be able to pour the next resin layer this evening, but that was on the premise of getting more of the resin out that's currently left. So because I can't get all of it out, and I've already decided no, I'm not even going to attempt pouring it until this lot has dried. Because another thing that I wouldn't want to happen is that any resin that I pour on doesn't mix properly with the resin that's already there. Whereas if the resin that's already there is set and is solid, it can't do shit. Now when I have finished this, what I will do is I'll get the blowtorch on it, just to give the resin another little heat cycle, try and get rid of any air bubbles that may be in there, but also just to try and give the resin a little bit more fluidity to sort itself out, hopefully, with what's left. And in a way it's been very handy that I had the grooves around the edges, the inner edge of the letters, because it has allowed me to see where the resin, when I said it was pooling, it's in those grooves that it is one of the places where I've really been able to notice that it is doing that. This is such a painstaking job. I really do not like having to do this. I've nearly done all of what I was here to do on this bit. What I'll do as well is I'll show you a slightly different view of what we've got here now. I mean, it looks horribly messy, although it looks better now than it did a couple of hours ago when I was into this process. I mean, one thing I'll say is even if I hadn't have needed to do this repair or replacement, removal, the piece wouldn't have been ready for tomorrow, unfortunately, given that the resin is taking longer to set. I didn't think it'd take as long as it has, but I'm glad that it did, because if it had set, I'd have been fucked. I'd have had to Dremel it out, and that would have been a horrible scenario. Right, I'm just going to move the camera. Okay, so you can kind of see obviously where the resin is pooling, in the edges. But not only that, where it's pooling in between all of the wood grain within there, where obviously I've done the excavating. Now, the sort of bits of wood that you can see within the lettering at the moment is basically what I could see through all of the resin coatings. So although it wasn't as bad as this, because obviously there was resin over the whole thing, you could actually see this effect on the wood at the bottom, which is not what was meant to happen. Whereas it should be more like the black here, where you can't see what's happened to the wood below. So yeah, it's been a very painstaking process, and I mentioned about sort of getting up on the sides. Oh, excuse me. So can see that there's sort of bits of resin on here. I'm not too worried about this, because I could spend fucking ages trying to get that off, but I can sand that off when I sand the top. But I'm hoping that bits like this, the resin will continue to pool down in the gullies, kind of like it has been doing here and on the O. So although it looks a little bit messy at the moment, I'm hoping that it's going to get better. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is use my blowtorch to try and treat this a little, and hopefully help with that last bit of getting the resin to settle down. Now, will it work? I have no idea. There's only one way to find out, and that is to give this a go and try. Also, hopefully any of the resin that has gone to the black bit by giving this heat process, it should give it a glassier look. So even if there has been a bit of an excess spread, it shouldn't really matter too much. Okay. Right. Okay, so all I can really do now is wait for that to dry, and then we can then we can attempt to put the next coating on. While I'm waiting, I just want to mention or show again that I just mentioned there about how using the heat gives a glassier finish, and this is a very good example of it. I mean, look at the reflection of the light bulb above me on this. Absolutely beautiful colours, and odd interesting pattern. Well, I say odd and interesting, it looks a little bit like an arse. Or maybe it's a black hole, but no, the colour on it and the reflection on it is absolutely phenomenal, and that's what using the heat allows. Yes, it gets rid of the air bubbles, but it also gives that much nicer finish. Okay, right, I'm done. I'm buggered. I need to go and get some food and hope that this repair is going to work properly, is going to set us up, and then also tomorrow I'm going to have to nip over and see Holly and wish her a happy birthday, and let her know that a gift is going to be late. So yeah, sorry about that, but there we go. Right, I shall see you in a bit.